Have you ever wondered what really happens in the exact moment your heart stops beating? What if everything you thought you knew about life, death, and even God was suddenly shattered in a single breathless instant? Today, you'll hear the true story of a man who died mid-flight and returned with a message that could change how you live the rest of your life. It was a Thursday morning, cold, crisp, and uneventful, January 28th, 1999. For most people, it was just another day. But for me, it was the day I died. Back then, I was living what many would call the dream. I was a television director working with major networks, producing content with celebrities, traveling the world, always on the move. I had married my high school sweetheart, raised 4 beautiful kids, and had carved out a career that was both creative and successful. Every day was fast-paced, intense, full of lights, sound, and deadlines. But it was also fulfilling. At least that's what I kept telling myself. Because when you're chasing dreams at 100 miles an hour, it's easy to miss the things slipping through your fingers. My wife, my children, they were everything to me. But somewhere along the way, I became what I never intended to be: absent. I was home, but not present. Providing, but not connected. I didn't see it happening. Most men don't. We're told to work hard, bring in the money, provide a good life, and I thought I was doing just that. Nice home, private schools, vacations. I thought those things were enough. But deep down, I was trading the irreplaceable for the urgent. And then came the opportunity. A friend in the motion picture world invited me to join a documentary project. It was something different, more grounded, potentially more profitable, and best of all, I could stay home more. I said yes. It felt like a second chance. Maybe I could be more present, more available. Maybe I could fix what I hadn't realized was broken. We found a distributor in Nashville who loved the project. So, on that January morning, I boarded a flight to Tennessee with my close friend Timothy Granage, a brilliant gospel singer and music producer. He was built like a football player, with a voice that could shake a cathedral. We sat side by side, talking, laughing, dreaming about what was ahead. But about 20 minutes into the flight, something felt wrong. I couldn't explain it. I'd flown dozens of times. I wasn't sick, I wasn't nervous, but suddenly the world began to dim. There was a tingling behind my eyes, a tightening in my chest, as if gravity itself had shifted. My body felt light, then heavy, then numb. "I'm not sick," I whispered to myself, gripping the armrest. I'm fine. I wasn't fine. I turned to Timothy and said, "Something's not right." Those were the last words I spoke. My eyes rolled back. My body went limp. My heart stopped. Timothy later told me he thought I was joking, some kind of weird mid-flight prank. But when he nudged me, and I didn't move, panic set in. He didn't know CPR, but he knew chest compressions. And with those powerful hands, he began pounding on my chest, over and over. Nothing. Passengers were beginning to scream. Flight attendants rushed over. The cabin buzzed with fear. And in the middle of that chaos, my friend pulled back his arm, ready to break my ribs if that's what it took. And then I took a breath. Gasping. Sudden. Violent. I returned. But where had I been? The doctors would later say I had suffered a severe cardiac event caused by something called malignant neurocardiogenic syncope, a rare condition where the brain and heart lose connection and the heart simply stops. It doesn't warn you. It doesn't hurt. It just switches off. They implanted a pacemaker in my chest. To this day, it kicks in about 6 times daily, pacing my heart so I don't slip away again. But what science couldn't explain, what no monitor, chart, or scan could measure, was what happened to me while I was gone. Because those 2, maybe 3 minutes? To me, they weren't minutes at all. They were forever. In that blink of time, I crossed a threshold, a line invisible to human eyes but unmistakable to the soul. I wasn't just unconscious, I was somewhere else. And what I encountered there will never leave me. I didn't go looking for God, but God came looking for me. If this story is touching your heart, make sure to subscribe to our channel, say Amen in the comments, and let us know your city so we can pray for you in the next video. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel fear. I felt nothing. And then everything. It's difficult to explain because our language is tied to time, to gravity, to the body. But when my heart stopped and my eyes shut in the cabin of that plane, I didn't descend into darkness. I didn't float above my seat or watch people panic around me. No, I went elsewhere, instantly. Not through a tunnel, not through a light. It was as if I had been lifted out of one existence and placed into another, in the span of a breath I no longer had. At first I became aware of a stillness, so vast, so complete, it made silence on earth feel noisy by comparison. There were no walls, no boundaries. It was not a place, but a presence. And I was inside it, or it was inside me. Time no longer existed. That much was clear. I couldn't tell if I had been there for a second or 1,000 years. All I knew was that everything that ever happened, and everything that ever would happen, seemed to exist in a single eternal moment, past and future folded into now. And in that now, there was light, not like sunlight or fluorescent light, no shadows, no glare. It wasn't light that came from something, it was something, living, breathing. A light that didn't illuminate the room around me. It illuminated me. It poured through my being, not onto it. Colors that don't exist on earth danced through the air like music made visible, blues with no name, golds that shimmered like memory. I felt them more than saw them, as if my soul had eyes of its own. There was no floor beneath me, no sky above, and yet I wasn't floating. I was being held, supported, as though the very essence of existence was embracing me. I remember the atmosphere. It was thick with love, palpable, tangible, like breathing in warm honey. Every part of me, my regrets, my fears, my guilt, began to dissolve, not ignored, not forgotten, but understood. It was then that I became aware of a presence, a being, not beside me, within me, around me, and even without seeing a face or hearing a voice I knew. God. But not the God I had feared as a boy. Not the cold figure painted in guilt or wrath. Not the God whose voice I had long imagined echoing my father's anger. No. This God loved me. Not in theory, not from afar, but completely, intimately, as though I was known to the core and still embraced. I didn't need to speak. In this place, communication wasn't bound by words. It was like being connected directly to truth. Every question I ever had was answered before I could even ask. Every doubt unraveled in a second. It was like a thread of pure understanding had been pulled through the fabric of my being, and everything made sense. Even my pain. Even my failures. I remembered my childhood, my father's illness, his outbursts, the shame I carried, the belief that I was a disappointment not just to him but to God. It all surfaced like a wave, and then melted in the light. Because here, in this realm beyond time, beyond space, I was not judged. I was loved. And not just loved, delighted in. If you've ever felt forgotten or small or broken, I wish I could take you with me to this place, to show you what I saw, to let you feel what I felt. Pause here, and if you've ever gone through something spiritual that left a mark on your life, share it in the comments below. I still don't know how to describe him. I couldn't see his form, but his essence? It was everywhere. He was the origin of love itself. Not just loving, but the very source of love. I tried to take it all in, the way every atom sang with purpose, the way beauty pulsed through even the silence. I remember thinking, this is home. Not the place I came from, but the place I was always meant to return to. There was no fear, no ambition, no striving, only a profound sense of belonging. And just when I thought I might remain there forever, I felt it. A shift. Not harsh, not cruel, but clear. Something was changing. I didn't hear a voice, but I understood. It's not time. And then, movement. Not like being pulled, more like surrendering. Suddenly, images began to swirl around me. At first slowly, then faster. Memories, moments, every smile, every argument, every late night, every missed opportunity. My life. But not as I remembered it. This was different. It was like watching puzzle pieces of my soul spinning through a wind tunnel, coming toward me, surrounding me, pulling me backward through everything I'd ever lived, towards something I couldn't yet see. And that is where I began to fall. I was falling, but not in fear. It was as if I were being gently lowered back through the corridors of my own existence, memories fluttering around me like autumn leaves in a silent breeze. Each scene came with a weight, a fragrance, an emotion I had once lived but now understood with unbearable clarity. I saw my childhood, the quiet corners of my room where I'd hide from my father's rage, the time I prayed, as a trembling boy, for God to make it stop. I saw my mother's tired smile, the way she held her pain in her hands and called it patience. I saw myself, small and unseen, desperately trying to be good enough, to be enough for someone to notice. And God had noticed. In every scene I felt not just my own thoughts, but how they echoed into the hearts of others. A word I had spoken in frustration, I now felt its sting on someone else's spirit. A moment of kindness I thought had gone unnoticed. I now saw how deeply it had mattered. Every action, every silence, every embrace, and every neglect, it all mattered. Nothing had been lost. Nothing had been meaningless. And still, there was no condemnation. Instead, I was being shown, not shamed, not scolded, but guided, taught. Every revelation felt like a warm hand pulling me from the depths, whispering, this too was part of the plan. Then came a moment that broke me open. I saw my wife, sitting at home with our children, her face lit only by the dim kitchen light, folding laundry long after midnight. The weariness in her eyes, the quiet ache she never voiced, the 1,000 invisible sacrifices she made while I was chasing my dreams on stages and screens. And I saw my children, waiting by the door, laughing without me, crying without me, growing without me. And I wept, not out of guilt, but out of knowing what I had missed, knowing how I had believed that love was measured by what I provided, instead of how I was present. I thought I was doing everything right, but in this place, stripped of ego, stripped of justification, I saw the truth. And yet, still, I was held in love. It overwhelmed me. How could a being so holy, so infinite, love someone as fractured and flawed as me? But he did, not despite my brokenness, but through it. He had always been there, in the hospital room, on the film sets, in the hotel lobbies, in the silent car rides home. He had walked with me even when I didn't recognize his steps. He had watched me fall and waited patiently for me to lift my eyes. Then came the understanding that silenced every question. God wasn't angry. He wasn't distant. He wasn't measuring me against some cosmic standard of perfection. He was for me. He was with me. And he had never once stopped believing in who I truly was beneath the noise. In this sacred place, he showed me a vision, not of heaven as I expected, but of what could be. I saw people. So many faces. Some I knew, some I didn't, and each one shimmered with divine purpose. I saw scenes of lives being changed, not by grand gestures, but by small quiet choices. A hand held in grief, a whispered prayer in the night, a letter written but never sent. I saw ripples spreading across generations because of a single moment of compassion. And then I saw myself, but it wasn't who I had been. It was who I was meant to become. Not the television director, not the speaker, but the servant. The man who lives each breath with intention. Who shows up, not just in boardrooms or studios, but at the dinner table, on the front porch in the sacred mundane. It was a revelation that rewired my soul. That everything, every choice, every word, every moment is either a step toward love or away from it. There is no neutral in the kingdom of God, and that my life, though imperfect, was still a story he was writing, and he wasn't done. I wanted to stay, to remain in that place where love had no limits and truth had no sting. But I felt the shift again. Not a voice, but a message deep in the marrow of my soul. You must return. There is more. And with that, the light began to fade. I wasn't pulled, I wasn't pushed, I was released. And I began to fall again, this time, toward breath, toward weight, toward the world I had left behind. I opened my eyes, and the first thing I saw was Timothy. Tears in his eyes, his hand still on my chest, whispering, "You're back. Bill, you're back." But I wasn't the same man who had boarded that plane. Something eternal had been awakened, and the world would never look the same again. The first breath back felt like breathing fire. It wasn't pain, it was weight, the weight of being human again. The sudden re-entry into a body that felt too small to contain what I had just experienced. My chest burned, my eyes stung, and yet somewhere deep inside, a stillness remained. I was alive. The plane had made an emergency landing. Paramedics rushed me to a hospital where tests revealed the truth. I had suffered a severe episode of malignant neurocardiogenic syncope. No heart attack, no stroke. Just a silent, lethal misfiring between my brain and heart. My heart had simply stopped. They implanted a pacemaker. It now keeps me alive, 6 times a day on average, pacing my heart, ensuring it remembers its rhythm. It's strange knowing that a small device in my chest is the line between waking and never waking again. But I no longer fear it. I welcome it. Because every beat is a reminder that I was sent back for a reason. The days that followed were a blur of hospital rooms and hushed conversations. My wife's hand in mine, my children's faces, wider eyes, longer hugs. But the world around me had changed. Or rather, I had changed. Colors were sharper. Sounds were deeper. Silence became sacred. Even the ticking of the clock in my bedroom reminded me, you are still here. This is not an accident. I started seeing people differently, not as interruptions or obligations, but as souls, each one fighting invisible battles, carrying untold stories, aching to be seen. I began listening more, talking less, forgiving quickly, laughing often. I no longer chased the spotlight. I sought the shadows, the quiet spaces where healing begins. I returned to work, but not the same way. I started turning down projects that didn't align with purpose. I made dinner with my family a priority. I tucked my kids in at night and looked them in the eyes when they spoke. I began sharing my story, not as a performance, but as a gift, a way to remind people of what truly matters. And here's what I came to understand, with absolute certainty. We are not accidents. We are not random. We are not alone. You were designed, intentionally, lovingly, and the breath in your lungs right now, it's not a guarantee. It's a gift, a sacred, undeserved, powerful gift. We all search for meaning. We look to success, to wealth, to titles. But meaning isn't found out there. It's here, in the tears of a friend, in the hand you hold, in the kindness you choose when it's not easy. I didn't return with all the answers, but I returned with this one truth. You are deeply, passionately, and eternally loved, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. And your life? It has purpose, still unfolding, still sacred, even in your doubts, even in your weakness. especially in your brokenness. The God I met wasn't keeping score, he was keeping watch and cheering me on, as he's cheering you on. If my heart stops again tomorrow, I won't be afraid, because I've seen what waits beyond, and it is not terror, it is home. But until that day, I will live, fully, gratefully, and with a heart wide open. If this story touched your soul, like this video and comment Amen with your name and city so we can pray for you in the next video.